Hey gang, staying with Intentional Farms again. It is March 9th, 2025. Continuing with updating some of our videos and recording some of this. Doesn't look like there's much action, but recording the action. So I thought I'd bring you along a little bit while I finish up my evening rounds and talk about another subject that I wanted to talk about a little bit. So we're just finishing up dealing with the steers for the evening. Thought I'd bring you along. These are our steers from last year, steer calves, bull calves that are now steers. We, as you know, if you've been following along at this point, we sold all of our mama cows. Realized that our forage and our acreage is better suited for sheep, but we are going to continue to run some cows, raise some beef, and so right now we're running them separate from the sheep. We're going to get them all ganged up here later on as the forage starts growing, but just wanted to come up here and button up some details for the evening, and was going to talk a little bit. You can see on that post right there, that's a tea bag. That's a cut-off pant leg that we use. We put their sea salt mineral in it. Every other day they get mineral in their water. They say, from the people that I've been reading, that it's 20% bioavailable in solid form, but it's 80% bioavailable when it's in liquid form. So we put it in their water and they get their mineral that way. I am also just recently started religiously adding apple cider vinegar to their water. So the experts that be, Will Winter in particular, says that 4 ounces per head, 4 ounces per head per day is all you need on a beef animal to help with digestion and rumen and miscellaneous. So over here to the right, you can see the shade structure. They've had access to apple cider vinegar, free choice, for quite some time. Now I am making sure that they get it by adding it to their water. So they're on pressurized water, and that still going the wrong way. I have to learn to drive this goofy thing. Playing with this new gimbal and not sure which way it goes. So pressurized water, 30-gallon tote on a float, and adding apple cider vinegar to make sure they get it. So anyway, I figured it was a lot more interesting to stand here and look at the cows do their thing than look at my ugly mug on this video. But tonight's topic is education. We just got done, had some people out to the farm, and we're kind of showing some things and talking about what we're doing and the regenerative ag side of things, and it really got me to thinking. They didn't necessarily ask. They had a lot of really good questions, but they didn't ask specifically, well, how do you know how to do all this? And maybe that was the thought that popped into my head, and I can't really say that I did know how to do any of this. I can't really say that I have it all figured out. What I can say is that I'm learning all of this. And I've been a proponent for a long time of, I don't really have a problem paying for an education. If I can go and sit in on a seminar or learn something from somebody else's experiences, I don't have a problem doing that. I prefer to learn from, I'm going to learn from mistakes. I prefer to learn from somebody else's mistakes. So if somebody else is dealing with a subject that I am interested in and that I have a need to learn more information, I really don't mind paying for an education. So you're going to pay for your education one way or the other. You're either going to pay for somebody else to talk to you about it, or you're going to pay for making mistakes in your operation and in your enterprise, whatever it is you're deciding to do. So I was just kind of going to go over some of the education that we felt was most important and most helpful. I think a lot of it has to do with the style of learner that you are. I know I'm show me, don't necessarily tell me. I can read a book and I can pick up some things, but I'll remember it a lot better if I see somebody do it. So one of the first things that we did was, once we bought the farm, I think we actually, before we had any animals, we actually went, I did, myself and a friend, went to the Greg Judy grazing school at his place. It was 2.5 or 3 days of talking about a little bit of everything from animal management to animal selection to animal classes to forage and soil health, and it really painted a pretty good picture of one of the things that I wanted to be able to do with this farm, which was be regenerative and low input. You know, hopefully when you have low input operations, hopefully you have higher profit margins. And I'm not necessarily interested in this to make as much money as I can, but I think a person needs to be able to pay the bills if he plans to stay in business and keep this up. So that was one of the first ones we did. I got started obviously on YouTube University. There is so much good information. There's also a lot of bad information out there. But I watched a lot of Joel Salatin videos. I watched a lot of Greg Judy videos. Really began to understand the systems and be able to at least talk the language and not act like an expert, but ask intelligent questions. And by being able to ask questions that are somewhat educated, you get better answers if you ask better questions. So along those lines, started that way. Found out pretty early on that the Stockman Grass Farmer, the monthly publication, was an excellent resource for regenerative agriculture and grass farmers and different classes of livestock and different people that have different exposures, and a lot of really good information. So we subscribed to that. Been subscribing to that for nearly 5 years now. Continued on the journey. I also got, that cow's getting ready to get shocked. He is messing with that hot wire. Maybe not. Maybe he figured it out soon enough. Let's see if he gets it. Hopefully not. He should learn. He should know. Continued with the Joel Salatin theme, and I believe I've read nearly every one of his books, some of them twice. There's a lot of good information in there. Some of that information is dated. A lot of the facts and figures are dated, but the concept is still the same. A lot of it is been improved upon. Some of his books have had different revisions that have more updated information and kind of more recent practices. So really read a lot of his stuff. Also read Greg Judy's books. He's got several good books, No Risk Ranching, and I can't remember the name of the other ones, but he's read some of those, written some of those. I've read all his books. Teddy Gentry, the developer and the breeder of the South Pole cattle breed, he's got a good book. Read that. Have dug into Understanding Ag and their website and their information that they have. That's a very good resource. The resource that I have probably most recently plugged into, because it seems to be a bit dual purpose, is podcasts. There are lots of really good podcasts, good guests, good information. If you even have a subject that you're interested in, man, a quick Google search of the podcast will turn up pretty good results on that. Working Cows podcast is one that I never missed. The recently rebranded Ranching Returns podcast used to be, gosh, the name just left me. But anyway, it's now Ranching Returns podcast. That one's been good. The Grazing Grass podcast, the Pastured Pig podcast. I've really enjoyed learning and listening a lot of that. There's a lot of good exposure and a lot of good experiences and people that are willing to talk about their train wrecks, their successes, their goals, and their new attempts that may or may not be working. So following along with that education theme, I've just realized that the value in all of that, whether you're I find myself with quite a bit of windshield time recently, and the Working Cows podcast and those other ones have been a good resource. There are some other in-person conferences that we've attended. We went to the Stockman Grass Farmer Gathering. I think it was the first one that they had back at Polyface about 4 years ago. We've done that. I have done one sale by marketing class. It was an online version. I had recently signed up for an in-person class from a different instructor, and we had some weather that prevented me from going because I knew what I would be leaving my wife with, taking care of animals and chipping ice and whatnot. So that is on my list of things to get back to. The sale by, I think, is an important aspect in some farming operations for income generation. So I believe in the value of taking that class. Eventually, one of my long-term goals is to take the Ranching for Profit class. I think that would be a huge move forward and a good investment in the future. But I also have to take, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So trying to eat what I can one bite at a time and continue to plug into this process. If none of this knowledge is anything, and I was quick to tell the people today that none of this knowledge is stuff that I am a pioneer in, that this is my proprietary method. This is all stuff that I've R&D'd, I've ripped off and duplicated. So a lot of these other people that are out there, they have very good intentions with spreading the knowledge because they realize the value of agriculture and the need for farmers and profitability and being able to continue raising food and feeding the American public. So there's a lot of good people that are out there that are putting out good information. I would say that, just as much, like I already mentioned, just as much good information is out there as there is bad information. You'll know what sounds right to you, and you can continue to continue your research. And if you hear the constant theme and the things that sound similar and the things that really ring true with you, and you've heard the same similar procedure or method or suggestions from multiple different farmers, then maybe that's an approach you take. Your application and your situation will be different than what they're telling you, but the overarching theme of it is oftentimes pretty comparable. So anyway, I just wanted to shed a little light on the fact that education is important, that you could figure this out on your own. You might take me 20 years to figure it out all on my own if I decided to do it that way. But I choose to link arms and invest in other people's system and begin to, I don't mind to contribute. I don't mind to help other people. They're sharing their knowledge with me. If they can condense 20 years of grazing experience into a 3-day seminar, then I am more than happy to pay that. So anyway, again, I think this is video 7. I didn't quite get it looked up in time. That cow's getting ready to get it. Licking that tea bag, getting the salt, and he's licking awful close to that hot wire. I can't imagine what it would be like to get shocked on the tongue. I think that'd be a pretty exciting experience. So anyway, maybe he got it figured out. He got away from it just in time. So anyway, that's today's video, is the story of education, the importance of it, and the value that it represents. So I will add a couple of my favorite podcasts or anything that Steve Campbell has to say. I really value his approach to selecting animals, to handling animals, to mineralizing animals. I appreciate any information that comes from C90 and soil health. Will Winter is a holistic vet that is very good at holistic animal health. Ellen Bench is one that's been on the Working Cows podcast recently, talking about homeopathic remedies. We are digging into that and using some of them currently, and really appreciate that approach. So that's just to name a few, but find somebody that agrees with the principles that you want to have with your animals and the food that you're raising, and dig into that approach. And before long, before you know it, you'll have 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or 50 different opinions and sources for that. So anyway, signing off. Catch you next time.